The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystal spires of New Zephyr, the capital world of the Galactic Council. For 1,000 years, peace had ruled the galaxy. 12 different alien species worked together, sharing knowledge and building a better future for everyone. The old days of war and suffering were just stories now, tales told to children to remind them how lucky they were. Dr. Vexistar adjusted his forearms as he studied the ancient ruins on his computer screen. The insect-like scientist had spent his whole life learning about the past. Today, something bothered him. The human ruins they found on distant worlds never made sense. The history book said humans were primitive warriors who destroyed themselves, but their technology told a different story. "Sir, we have a problem," his assistant called out. The young Zephyrian's blue skin had turned pale with worry. "The monitoring stations in Sector 7 have gone dark. All 12 of them stopped sending signals at the same time." Vexstar clicked his mandibles together, a sign of deep thinking. Sector 7 was at the edge of known space, where old human colonies used to be. Nothing lived out there now except for scavengers and pirates, or so they thought. 3 days later, a research team landed on Kepler 442. The forest world had been empty for centuries, covered in thick green trees and flowing rivers. According to the records, humans had lived here once, but they left nothing behind except some broken buildings and rusty metal. Captain Zara Quinn led the team through the dense woods. She was human-looking but not human. Her people, the Novan, had evolved on a world similar to old Earth. The Council treated them well enough, but they were always reminded that they were newcomers to galactic society. "The readings are stronger. Here," she told her team. Her scanner showed energy patterns that should not exist. The device in her hand was the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but it could barely make sense of what it was detecting. They found the facility buried under a hill covered in vines. From the outside, it looked like a natural formation, but Zara's scanner went crazy as they got closer. The energy readings were off the charts. "This is impossible," Dr. Keth muttered. The gray-skinned scientist was an expert on human artifacts. He had studied their ruins for decades. Humans never had technology like this. They could barely travel between stars when they vanished. The entrance opened when Zara touched it. No locks, no barriers, just a smooth wall that dissolved like water. Inside, the facility was clean and bright, as if someone had just left. The walls were made of a material none of them recognized. It felt warm to the touch and seemed to glow with its own light. In the main chamber, they found something that made their blood run cold. A map of the galaxy floated in the air, showing every world, every station, every ship currently in space. Red dots marked the locations of all Council fleets, green dots showed trade routes, and blue dots marked something else entirely, something the Council had never seen before. "How is this possible?" Zara whispered. "This map shows ships that launched yesterday. The Council's own intelligence networks don't have information this current." Dr. Keth was studying a control panel that seemed to respond to his thoughts. "The carbon dating on these materials shows they were made less than 50 years ago, but that cannot be right. Humans have been gone for 1,000 years." As he touched the panel, the room filled with a low humming sound. Suddenly, displays came to life all around them. Images of human faces appeared on the screens, but these humans looked different. Their eyes held a strange light, and their expressions showed intelligence far beyond anything the team had ever seen. "Warning, unauthorized access detected," a voice said in perfect galactic standard. "Emergency beacon activated. Message transmitted. The eye." Team ran from the facility as fast as they could. Behind them, the building began to glow brighter and brighter until it looked like a small star had been born in the forest. The light shot up into the sky and disappeared among the stars. Back on New Zephyr, the Council leaders gathered in emergency session. Fleet Admiral Torque, the massive bear-like commander of the Galactic Defense Force, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Impossible. Humans were primitives. They could barely make fire when they first reached space. Their own wars destroyed them before they could become a real threat to anyone." High Counselor Yalen, the wise leader of the ethereal race, floated silently above her chair. Her people were made of pure energy and rarely showed emotion, but today her light flickered with worry. The evidence suggests otherwise, she said, her voice like singing crystal. If humans survived and developed this level of technology in secret, they represent a threat we cannot calculate. The beacon's message had traveled far beyond the galaxy's edge, into the empty space between star systems where nothing was supposed to exist. But something was out there waiting in the dark, something that had been patient for a very long time. In the depths of space, ancient sensors detected the signal. Massive structures that had drifted silent for centuries began to wake up. Lights appeared in the darkness as sleeping giants opened their eyes. Far from any star, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a ship that defied every law of physics the galaxy knew. Around him, his crew moved with the efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. They were human, but changed, improved, made into something the old Earth could never have imagined. "Signal received, sir," his communications officer reported. "The beacon on Kepler 442 has been activated. They found one of our old facilities." Jake nodded slowly. His enhanced eyes could see across the electromagnetic spectrum, and his mind processed information at speeds that would burn out a normal, human brain. Behind him, the ship's walls showed the galaxy they had left behind, now full of species that thought they understood the universe. "Send word to the Admiral," Jake said quietly. "Tell her the children have finally grown up enough to find our toys. It's time to see if they're ready to meet their parents." The message traveled through quantum channels that existed outside normal spacetime. In minutes, it reached the Exodus fleet, the collection of massive ships and artificial worlds where humanity had lived and grown for 1,000 years of exile. Admiral Kate Sullivan received the message in her ready room aboard the flagship Eternal Dawn. She was over 200 years old but looked 30, her body kept young by technologies that could rewrite DNA itself. Her mind held the memories of Earth, of the decision to leave, and of everything humanity had become in the dark between the stars. She touched a control panel and spoke to the fleet. "All ships, prepare for return protocol. We're going home." The Exodus fleet had been humanity's home for 1,000 years. Massive ships the size of small moons drifted in the empty space between galaxies, connected by bridges of light that bent space itself. Inside these vessels, millions of humans lived and worked, but they were no longer the same species that had left Earth so long ago. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked through the gardens of her flagship. Trees from 100 different worlds grew side by side, their roots drinking from streams that flowed uphill. Gravity here obeyed human will rather than natural law. Children played in the air above her head, their laughter echoing off walls that showed the stars outside. These children had never seen a planet. To them, the galaxy they came from was just a story their parents told. They knew about Earth from history lessons, but it felt as real as fairy tales. Their parents had made sure they understood one thing, though. They were better than those they had left behind. "Admiral, the scout teams are ready for insertion," reported Commander Ryan Blake. The tall man's eyes glowed softly blue, a sign of the neural improvements all humans now carried. His body was stronger than steel, his mind faster than any computer the old galaxy possessed. "Good. How many volunteers did we get?" Kate asked. "Every single person in the fleet," Ryan answered with a smile. "We had to hold a lottery to choose. The teams. Everyone wants to see what became of home." Kate nodded. She understood the feeling. Even after all these years, Earth still called to them. But they had to be careful. The species that now ruled their old territory might panic if they knew the truth about humanity's return. In the ship's main laboratory, Dr. Alex Chen worked on the final preparations. The genetic engineer had spent decades perfecting the technology that would let humans blend in with the galaxy's current inhabitants. Small devices no bigger than coins would change their appearance completely, making them look like any species they chose. "The biomasks are ready," Alex told his assistant, Dr. Lisa Hayes. "They can hold any form for months without recharging. DNA scanners won't detect the change, and even telepathic species will see what we want them to see." Lisa picked up one of the devices. It felt warm in her hand, alive somehow. Are you sure they're safe? We don't know how these aliens might react if they discover humans among them. That's why we chose our best people for the mission, Alex replied. Jake's team has trained for this their whole lives. If anyone can blend in and gather information, it's them. 3 days later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the transport bay with his team. Each of them wore the biomasks, but they hadn't activated them yet. Jake wanted his people to remember what they really were before they put on their disguises. Remember, we're not there to make friends, he told them. We need to understand what these species have become, how they think, what they want. Our families are counting on us to bring back the truth. Major Sam Rodriguez checked his weapons one last time. The enhanced soldier carried tools that could cut through any known material and shields that could stop a supernova. But the most dangerous thing about him was his mind, trained to think faster and see patterns that others missed. Sir, what if we find out they're not worth saving? Sam asked quietly. Jake looked out at the stars. Then we'll have a very different conversation with the Admiral when we get back. Their ship was small and fast, designed to look like the kind of vessel smugglers might use. It would get them into the galaxy without attracting attention. As they prepared to leave, Jake activated his biomask. His human features melted away, replaced by the gray skin and large eyes of a Kethran trader. The others did the same. In moments, the human strike team had become a mixed group of galactics, citizens. Only their minds remained unchanged, still connected to each other through quantum links that no alien technology could detect. Their first stop was a trading station on the galaxy's edge. The place buzzed with activity as dozens of species bought and sold goods from across known space. Jake's team split up, each taking on different roles as they gathered information. What they discovered made their blood run cold. The peaceful galaxy the aliens bragged about was built on lies. Jake watched as young species were forced to sign contracts they couldn't understand, giving up their freedom for basic necessities. Lisa saw how the Council's medical treatments made entire populations dependent on drugs that kept them calm and obedient. Sam discovered the worst truth of all. In the station's lower levels, he found holding cells filled with beings from species that had tried to resist the Council's rule. Their minds had been wiped clean, turning them into empty shells that served without question. This isn't civilization, Lisa whispered through their quantum link. It's slavery with better packaging. Jake felt anger burning in his chest, but he kept his expression calm. Around him, the station's inhabitants went about their business, never knowing that humanity's judgment was being passed on them. They spent weeks moving through the galaxy, visiting world after world. Everywhere they went, the pattern was the same. The strong species ruled through fear disguised as protection. The weak were kept weak through careful manipulation. Innovation was discouraged, exploration was limited, and anyone who asked too many questions simply disappeared. On the industrial world of Gamma Prime, Jake's team witnessed something that made their decision for them. A young Novan scientist had discovered a new form of energy that could power ships faster and cheaper than anything currently available. Instead of celebrating the discovery, the authorities arrested him for unlicensed research. We can't let this continue, Sam said that night as they hid in an abandoned warehouse. These people are living in a prison and they don't even know it. The question is, what do we do about it? Lisa asked. Jake had already made up his mind. We go home and tell the Admiral what we found. Then we let humanity decide what happens. Next. The return journey took 2 weeks. During that time, Jake's team compiled everything they had learned into a detailed report. The evidence was overwhelming. The Galactic Council had created a system designed to prevent any species from growing strong enough to challenge them. When they finally docked with the Exodus fleet, Admiral Sullivan was waiting for them. She read their report in silence, her face growing harder with each page. So they've learned nothing, she said finally. 1,000 years of peace, and they're still the same scared, petty creatures we left behind. What are your orders, Admiral? Jake asked. Kate looked out at the galaxy that had once been humanity's home. Her ancestors had left to give these species a chance to grow, to become something better. Instead, they had become worse than the humans they had replaced. Signal the fleet. she said quietly. We're going home. And this time, we're not leaving. In the depths of space, 1,000 ships began to move toward the galaxy. Each one carried technology that could reshape reality itself, weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics, and humans who had spent a millennium preparing for this moment. The children of Earth were coming home, and they were not pleased with what they found. The Great Hall of the Exodus fleet had never seen such an argument. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood at the center while hundreds of human leaders shouted at each other. The debate had been going on for 3 days, and no one could agree on what to do next. We should guide them slowly, said Dr. Rachel Green, the fleet's top diplomat. Show them a better way to live. Violence will only prove we're the monsters they think we are. Monsters. General Nathan Cross slammed his metal fist on the table. Half of his body was machine now, rebuilt after a training accident years ago. Look at what they've done. Billions of beings living as slaves while their masters pretend to be peaceful. They deserve everything that's coming to them. Kate watched the argument with tired eyes. She had hoped humanity would be united when they returned home, but the scouting reports had divided them into 2 groups. The shepherds wanted to teach and guide the galaxy toward something better. The reapers wanted to tear down the corrupt system and start over. We are not gods, Dr. Rachel continued. We don't have the right to decide who lives and who dies across an entire galaxy. Then what was the point of leaving? Nathan shot back. We spent 1,000 years becoming better, stronger, smarter. We did it so we could come back and fix the mess we left behind. Now you want to waste time playing teacher to species that chose slavery over freedom? Lieutenant Colonel Brad Turner stepped forward. The Special Operations Commander had been quiet during most of the debate, but now he had something to say. Maybe. We're asking the wrong question, Brad said. Instead of deciding what to do to them, we should ask what they'll do to us. My teams report that the Council has detected our infiltration. They know we're here. The room fell silent. Kate felt her heart sink. They had hoped to have more time to plan, to prepare. But if the Council knew about them, everything changed. How much do they know? She asked. Everything, Brad replied. Our biomasks were perfect, but we underestimated their surveillance systems. They've been watching us since we arrived. Right now, they're mobilizing every fleet in the galaxy. On the Council world of New Zephyr, Fleet Admiral Torque stared at the reports on his desk. The massive bear-like creature's claws had left deep scratches in the metal surface. Around him, his staff worked frantically to coordinate the largest military mobilization in galactic history. How many ships do we have? He growled. 12 million, sir, his aide replied nervously. Every member species has contributed their full military force. We also have the Starkiller weapons ready for deployment. Torque nodded grimly. The Starkillers were the Council's ultimate weapon, devices that could make suns explode and destroy entire solar systems. They had never been used in war, but desperate times called for desperate measures. And the humans, how many ships do they have? Our best estimate is around 1,000, sir. Large vessels, but heavily outnumbered. Torque smiled for the first time in days. 1,000 ships against 12 million seemed like good odds, even if the humans had better technology. Numbers mattered in war, and the Council had the advantage. High Counselor Yalen floated into the command center, her energy form flickering with worry. Admiral, are you certain this is the right course? Perhaps we should try to negotiate first. Negotiate? Torque's voice boomed through the room. These creatures infiltrated our territory, spied on our people, and now threaten everything we've built. There's nothing to negotiate. We destroy them before they can destroy us. Meanwhile, the human fleet began its approach to the galaxy. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UESS Valkyrie, watching the stars grow brighter as they moved closer to home. His crew was silent, each person lost in their own thoughts about what was coming. Sir, we're detecting massive energy. Readings ahead, his sensor officer reported. Looks like the entire galactic fleet is waiting for us at Proxima Station. Jake nodded. Proxima Station was a huge trading hub near the edge of human space, built where Earth's first colonies used to be. It made sense that the Council would choose to make their stand there. How many ships? He asked. Too many to count, sir. Has to be millions. Jake smiled. The council was thinking like the old humans, believing that bigger fleets meant victory. They didn't understand what humanity had become during their long exile. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "All ships except Valkyrie are to hold position. We're going in alone." His crew looked at him in shock. One ship against millions seemed like suicide, but Jake knew better. The Valkyrie wasn't just a ship, it was something far more dangerous. As they approached Proxima Station, Jake could see the council fleet spread out like a metal cloud around the station. Millions of ships arranged in perfect battle formations, their weapons powered up and ready to fire. "This is Fleet Admiral Torque of the Galactic Defense Force." A voice boomed over the communication system. "Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You are outnumbered and outgunned." Jake activated his own communication system. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth starship Valkyrie. You have 48 hours to release all enslaved species and dissolve your corrupt government. This is your only warning." Torques. Laughter echoed through space. "One ship against 12 million? You humans really are as insane as the old records claimed." "Then let me show you what insanity looks like," Jake replied calmly. The battle began without ceremony. The council fleet opened fire with everything they had: energy beams that could melt planets, missiles that could crack moons, and exotic weapons that attacked matter itself, all focused on the single human ship. The light show was visible from worlds hundreds of light years away, as enough firepower to destroy solar systems concentrated on one target. When the light faded, everyone expected to see empty space where the Valkyrie had been. Instead, the human ship hung motionless in space, completely undamaged. Around it, a sphere of twisted light protected it from every attack the council could throw at it. "Impossible," Torque whispered. Jake's voice came over the communication system again, calm and friendly. "Your turn is over. Now it's mine." The Valkyrie didn't fire weapons. Instead, it released a pulse of energy that swept through the entire council fleet in seconds. One by one, millions of ships simply stopped working. Their engines died, their weapons powered down, their life support systems switched to emergency mode. But the crews were unharmed. Jake had specifically designed the attack to disable ships without killing anyone. He wanted the council to understand what mercy looked like when it came from strength. "This message goes out to every world in the galaxy," Jake broadcast on all frequencies. "We are humanity. We have returned. The age of lies and hidden slavery is over. Those who have been kept down will be lifted up. Those who have done the oppressing will learn what justice means." As his words spread across the galaxy, something miraculous began to happen. On world after world, species that had been kept docile by the council's drugs and mind control began to wake up. The hidden signal in Jake's message carried a frequency that disrupted the neural dampeners, freeing billions of minds for the first time in centuries. Riots broke out on industrial worlds. Slave species turned on their masters. The careful order the council had maintained for 1,000 years crumbled in a matter of hours. On New Zephyr, High Counselor Yalen stared at the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. How did they do this? How did one ship defeat our entire fleet? Admiral Torque sat in his command chair, looking older than his years. "Because we're not fighting the humans who left," he said quietly. "We're fighting the gods they became." The galaxy was burning. Not with fire, but with the light of freedom as billions of enslaved beings broke their chains. On every world, species that had forgotten what it meant to be free suddenly remembered. The Council's 1,000-year reign of hidden control was collapsing faster than anyone could have imagined, but the Council was not finished. "Deploy the reality bombs," Fleet Admiral Torque ordered, his voice heavy with desperation. Around him, the command center on New Zephyr buzzed with panicked activity. "Target every system where the humans might be hiding." His staff looked at him in horror. Reality bombs were weapons of absolute destruction. They didn't just destroy matter. They erased it from existence completely. Entire solar systems would simply stop being, as if they had never existed at all. "Sir, the reality bombs have never been tested in actual combat," his science officer warned. "We don't know what side effects they might have." "I don't care," Torque snarled. Better to rule over empty space than lose everything to these human monsters. High Counselor Yalen's energy form flickered with distress. You would destroy billions of innocent lives just to stop the humans? Have we become the very evil we claim to fight? We are preserving order, Torque replied coldly. Sometimes order requires terrible choices. The first reality bomb was fired at the Centauri system, where human ships had been spotted. The weapon traveled faster than light itself, carrying destruction that could unmake creation. But when it reached its target, something impossible happened. The bomb struck what looked like empty space and simply vanished. In its place, a barrier of pure light appeared, stretching across the entire solar system. The humans had somehow created a shield that existed in higher dimensions, making it immune to any attack from normal space. Captain Tony Martinez stood on the bridge of the UESS Phoenix, watching his ship's reality-warping engines hold the shield in place. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Sir, we're detecting 11 more reality bombs heading for human positions," his tactical officer reported. "Then we'd better get to work," Tony replied with a grim smile. The Phoenix wasn't just a ship. It was a living construct that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Its crew had volunteered to have their consciousness partially merged with the vessel itself, allowing them to think and react at the speed of pure thought. Tony closed his eyes and felt his mind expand across space-time. Through the ship's senses, he could see the reality bombs approaching like bullets of absolute darkness. With a thought, he reached out and caught them one by one, holding them in dimensional pockets where they could do no harm. But the effort was enormous. Tony felt his human mind stretching to its limits as he manipulated forces that were never meant to be controlled. Around him, his crew began to glow with an inner light as their enhanced bodies struggled to channel the power they were wielding. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the war took on forms that defied all understanding. Colonel Amy Watson led her dimensional Marines in an assault on a council fortress that existed in 7 different realities at once. Her soldiers moved through walls like ghosts, appearing and disappearing as they shifted between dimensions. The enemy couldn't fight what they couldn't see or touch. Amy's Marines didn't need to kill anyone. Instead, they reached into their targets' minds and simply turned off their desire to fight. Council soldiers put down their weapons and walked away, confused but unharmed. "This isn't war," one of Amy's sergeants said as they secured another position without firing a shot. "It's like we're trying to teach children to behave. Maybe that's exactly what we're doing," Amy replied. The strangest battle of all took place at the galaxy's center, where the massive black hole that held everything together had become a weapon. The Council's scientists had found a way to destabilize it, planning to collapse the entire galaxy rather than lose control of it. "If we can't rule it, no one can," High Counselor Yalen had declared in her final transmission before the plan was set in motion. But humanity had an answer even for this ultimate act of spite. Dr. Peter Jackson had spent decades working on the most dangerous project in human history. His consciousness-linking technology could connect minds across any distance, allowing perfect cooperation and understanding. Now, he was about to use it in a way that would either save the galaxy or destroy it completely. "Are you sure about this?" Admiral Kate Sullivan asked as she prepared to enter the linking chamber. Around her, 10,000 human volunteers lay in similar devices, ready to join their minds together for one impossible task. "No," Peter admitted, "but it's the only way to stop them from destroying everything." The linking process began slowly, then accelerated as more minds joined the network. Kate felt her individual thoughts dissolving into something larger, something that was still human but also more than human. Through the link, she could sense every human in the galaxy, their hopes and fears and determination all flowing together into a single purpose. Together, they reached out with their combined will and touched the black hole at the galaxy's heart. What happened next was beyond description. The singularity that had been set to destroy everything instead became something new. Matter and energy began to flow out of it in patterns that followed no known laws of physics. Dead worlds suddenly bloomed with life. Broken ships repaired themselves. Species that had been on the edge of extinction found themselves healthy and strong again. The black hole had become a source of creation instead of destruction. But the cost was terrible. Half of the humans who had joined the link burned out completely, their minds unable to handle the strain of touching infinity. Entire fleets phased out of normal space, their crews lost between dimensions where time and distance had no meaning. Tony Martinez felt his ship beginning to fade as the Phoenix's reality engines finally overloaded. Around him, his crew was dissolving into light as their consciousness merged permanently with the vessel itself. "Tell the Admiral," he whispered to his communication officer with his last breath. "Tell her we held the line." As the immediate crisis passed, Admiral Sullivan found herself standing alone in the linking chamber. Around her, the empty devices that had once held thousands of brave volunteers now stood silent. The price of victory had been higher than anyone had imagined, but they had won. Across the galaxy, the last of the Council's forces were surrendering. Reality bombs hung powerless in space, caught in dimensional nets that would hold them forever. The great black hole pulsed with creative energy, sending waves of renewal across billions of worlds. "Admiral," General Nathan Cross's voice came over the communication system. "The Council leadership is requesting terms for surrender. What should I tell them?" Kate looked out at the stars, so many of them now shining brighter than before. Humanity had returned to claim their birthright, but they had paid for it with blood and souls. "Tell them," she said quietly, "that the age of fear is over. Now we build something better." The Infinite War, as historians would later call it, had lasted only 3 days. But in those 3 days, the very nature of reality had been rewritten. Humanity had proven that they were no longer just another species struggling for survival. They had become something new, something that could reshape the universe itself through will alone. The question now was what they would do with that terrible and wonderful power. 6 months after the Infinite War ended, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in what used to be the Council chambers on New Zephyr. The massive room had been redesigned, its cold metal walls replaced with living wood that grew from the floor and curved toward a ceiling that showed the real sky above. Sunlight streamed through leaves that whispered with voices from a dozen different worlds. Before her, the former leaders of the Galactic Council knelt in a circle. But they were not prisoners. The neural dampeners that had filled their minds with fear and pride had been removed, just like those that had enslaved billions across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, they could think clearly. "We were monsters," High Counselor Yalen whispered, her energy form dim with shame. "All this time we thought we were keeping peace, but we were just spreading a different kind of war." Fleet Admiral Torque's great head hung low. The bear-like creature's claws had been retracted since the day he surrendered, and he had not spoken above a whisper since learning the truth about what he had done. "Please," he said quietly, "tell us how to make it right. We will do anything." Kate felt no anger toward them. Anger was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. With the power they now wielded, every emotion had to be carefully controlled. One moment of rage could reshape reality itself. "Stand up," she said gently. "All of you. You are not my prisoners, and I am not your judge. We have work to do together." In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change in ways that no one could have imagined. The Nexus Protocol, designed by Dr. Maria Gonzalez, allowed different species to share thoughts and feelings without losing their individual minds. Beings who had hated each other for thousands of years suddenly understood why their neighbors acted the way they did. President Helen Foster, the newly elected leader of the reformed galactic government, stood before the first truly free assembly in galactic history. Representatives from over 1,000 species filled the Great Hall, each one chosen by their own people rather than appointed by distant masters. "We gather today not as rulers and subjects," Helen said, her voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy through quantum transmitters, "but as partners in building something that has never existed before. A civilization where every voice matters, where every species can grow to reach their full potential." The applause that followed came from beings who had never before been allowed to express joy freely. On worlds across the galaxy, Celebrations erupted as entire populations experienced true happiness for the first time in their lives. But the real changes were happening in places most people never saw. Admiral Chris Bennett led the new exploration corps, taking volunteers from every species on journeys to worlds that existed partially in normal space and partially in the quantum realm. These expedition teams were discovering that reality was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had ever dreamed. "Sir, we're detecting intelligent signals from the Andromeda Galaxy," his science officer reported during one such mission. The young woman was a hybrid of 3 different species, her mind enhanced by human technology to process information at impossible speeds. Chris smiled. "Then I guess we'd better say hello." Back on the world that humans now called New Earth, children from dozens of species played together in gardens that defied every law of physics. The planet existed in 7 dimensions at once, allowing impossible things to happen as easily as breathing. A young Zephyrian child could run up the side of a tree and keep going until she was running on air. A human boy could touch a flower and make it sing songs that conveyed pure emotion. Captain Jake Morrison, now bearing the title of first speaker, watched the children with wonder. His own daughter, born after the war, could see across multiple dimensions and spoke languages that existed only in her imagination. She was human, but she was also something entirely new. "Daddy, look," she called out, pointing to empty air. "The music is making colors." Jake could see it too, now that his mind had been fully awakened. Reality was not the solid, unchanging thing that people had once believed. It was fluid, responsive, alive in ways that the old universe had never allowed. "Beautiful, sweetheart," he said, kneeling down to hug her. "What does it sound like?" "Like home," she replied, though she had never known any home except this strange new world where anything was possible. Dr. Lisa Hayes worked in laboratories that existed between the spaces of normal matter, studying life forms that had been born from the creative energy flowing out of the transformed black hole. These new beings were not made of atoms and molecules but of pure thought and will, yet they were as real as anything else in the universe. "They're trying to communicate," she told her research team, "but they think in concepts we don't have words for yet." "What kind of concepts?" asked her assistant, a young man whose consciousness had been partially merged with a quantum computer. "Hope, I think, and something like gratitude. They know that we changed the galaxy, and they want to thank us." As the first year of the New Age drew to a close, humanity began to reach beyond their home galaxy. Generation ships that existed partially, outside of time itself, carried volunteers toward distant star clusters, where other civilizations faced the same challenges that the Milky Way had overcome. The mission to Andromeda was led by Major Sam Rodriguez, now enhanced far beyond his original human form. His ship, the UESS Explorer, could travel between galaxies in days rather than millennia, using engines that folded space-time like origami. "First contact in 30 seconds, his pilot announced. "The signals are definitely coming from an artificial source." Sam nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Humanity had learned hard lessons about the price of power. They would not make the same mistakes with other galaxies that the Council had made with theirs. The alien ship that met them was beautiful, all flowing curves and crystalline surfaces that sang with harmonious frequencies. Its builders were clearly far advanced, but Sam could sense something familiar about them, something that reminded him of humanity before they had left their home galaxy. "Greetings," came a message in perfect galactic standard. "We are the architects of Andromeda. We have been waiting for you to arrive." "Waiting for us?" Sam replied, surprised. "How did you know we were coming?" "Because we faced the same choice. You did long ago. We saw our galaxy falling into darkness and despair, but instead of leaving, we stayed and tried to fix things from within. We failed. Our civilization collapsed, and billions died before we could rebuild." Sam felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying this has happened before?" "Many times in many galaxies. It is the test that all intelligent life must eventually face. The choice between ruling through fear or leading through hope. Most civilizations fail this test. You are only the 3rd species we have encountered that chose correctly." The implications were staggering. Across the universe, Countless civilizations were struggling with the same challenges. Some succeeded, some failed, but all faced the same fundamental choice about what it meant to be truly alive. We would like to propose an alliance, the Andromedan continued. A network of galaxies working together to help younger civilizations avoid the mistakes we all made. We call it the Infinite Community. Sam smiled. I think humanity would be very interested in that. As he sent the message back to New Earth, Sam looked out at the stars of Andromeda and imagined what the universe might become. A place where every species could reach their full potential, where consciousness itself could grow and evolve without limit, where the only boundaries were those imposed by imagination. Humanity had come home, but home was no longer just one galaxy. Home was everywhere that life existed, everywhere that minds could touch and hearts could hope. The children of Earth had become the gardeners of infinity itself, and this was only the beginning.